So I saw a video of a guy a couple days ago. Not really a video, it was a YouTube shorts. And he was talking about how easy it is to read comic books. But he didn't went that deep or deep enough in that video, especially because it was a part of a live stream. So I assume on the live stream he expanded on that idea a little bit more, but I didn't have access to the live stream. I had access to the YouTube short, and on the comment section I saw some people complaining about issues they had when they tried to read comic books. So that's what prompted me to record this one. So I'll try to tackle down the most common issues that I saw and also give some advice that I follow or whatever. So the first one is the lack of a origin story. So what I saw was people comparing comic books to manga, and on manga you will have a very defined story with a beginning, a development, and an ending. Well, on most cases we hope to have an ending, because we also have some stuff going on for 8,000 chapters, but still. And comic books does things a little bit differently from that. They are not, their main focus is not to tell a story with a beginning and an ending, but to tell new stories. And because of that, the origins of superheroes, it's kind of a background or a second plan. So if you start reading Batman #1, you will not have the origin story. I don't feel like that's a big issue for me, at least not now. Not when I say not now, I mean not in the current day and age, because you can just search on YouTube for the origin story, and when you search for a origin story you will see some videos that are 10 minutes long telling the origin story of a superhero, and that's basically all you need, because there ain't much to superheroes origins. I don't know, Batman. What's the origin story of Batman? Bruce was out with his parents, then his parents got killed, and then he decided to become the Batman and to fight crime. That's that's basically all there is to know. And then all the rest of it is just details that you will learn while reading all the stories. The same goes for Superman. What's Superman's origin story? There was the planet Krypton that was about to explode, so Superman's parents sent him on a ship down to Earth. And when he got here, he got adopted. And then with time, he started to discover his powers. And then he actually became Superman and decided to fight crime. That's it. That's the story. That's the origin story. And then there is some others that are even dumber, like the Green Lantern. There are these magical rings that will seek people that are worth of its power. And once they find someone worth of having the Green Lantern ring, this person will become a part of the intergalactic police force until they die. And when they die, the ring will find another person. So that's the origin of the Green Lanterns. You see, I can summarize these stories in a minute or less, because there ain't much to it. And you can just search online and you'll be just fine with a 10 minutes long explanation. Some characters will require more, like Jason Todd's Red Hood, because that character goes through a lot of phases until he becomes the Red Hood. So, but still, half an hour long video is gonna be enough, and you can just leave that on the background while you do something else. And also you don't need to search for every superhero origin story, just the one that you are interested on. So if you're gonna read a Batman comic book, you just search for Batman's origin story, and that's about it. If the heroes can be summarized that much, the villains are even worse. Like Batman's villains are just gimmicks, like the Joker. The Joker is a crazy clown, it's an insane clown, and that's it. The Scarecrow is a scarecrow, is a guy on a scarecrow costume, and he uses fear to fight the heroes. Where else? The Penguin is just a mafia boss. That's just it. He's just a mob boss, and there ain't much else to the story. Like, there is more to the story, but you don't actually need to do a deep dive into the character's story, the character's background, to read the comics. You will learn with time. And again, just like the heroes, there are some even dumber villains, like the Condiment King. He attacks using condiments. Mr. Freeze, what does he do? He freezes. That's it. So you don't really need an actual comic book to understand these stories. You just need to do a quick search. I will argue that for the villains, you don't even need to search for their background, because when you are reading the comic, you will see what the gimmick of that villain is. And the villains are usually better explained than the heroes. Like, their goals is better explained, so you don't really need to go look for their background. If you are reading and you enjoy a villain, then you can do that, but it's not really required. So from where to actually start? It's gonna be through the number one issue, just like manga. The difference is that on comic books, from time to time, there will be world-ending events, which will they are just events, major events, that will usually involve a lot of superheroes and supervillains, and it's just like its own story. And after that, they will start a new universe. They will end the previous universe and start a new one, resetting the count. So there was a world-ending event that gave origin to the New 52, and the New 52 is kind of I don't know the correct word, so I'll just call it a editorial badge, or a badge. So there was the world-ending event, ended the previous universe, started the New 52, and every hero will have a version on the New 52 universe. So if you want to read Batman, you can just search for Batman from the New 52, and you start from the issue number 1. The same for Superman. Superman, number 1 issue from the New 52 universe. And the New 52 went on until the next world-ending event, which, if I remember correctly, was called Convergence. And that Convergence put an end to the New 52 universe and started the Rebirth universe. And again, it's just the same. It's just a way of resetting the count. So let's say Batman from the New 52 was on the issue number 100. Then there was Convergence, which ended Batman from the New 52 and started Batman from Rebirth and started from the #1 issue. And Rebirth is what is currently going on. There was a world ending event, kind of, but it didn't end the Rebirth universe, it just started a new one. So right now we are just waiting for the world ending event that will end Rebirth and start a new one. This one that I just mentioned that didn't end the Rebirth but started a new one was called Absolute Power. Absolute Power did not end the Rebirth, but it started the Absolute Universe. So you can also start reading from there. So you will search for Batman from the Absolute Universe, which is called Absolute Batman, and you will read from the #1 issue. The same from Superman. The Superman from the Absolute Universe is called Absolute Superman, and it starts from the issue #1. I just don't recommend doing that and going for the Rebirth instead, because the Absolute Universe is kinda of a what if universe. So it's not the most classic telling of the stories. It's always like it's Batman stories, but with this other thing going on. It's Superman stories, but with this other thing going on. So that's why I say it's not the most classic telling of the story. You can start just fine by that. I just don't recommend. And I recommend going for the Rebirth instead. And you don't actually need to read the world ending event, because the world ending event ended the previous universe and started the new one. For Convergence, it ended the New 52 and started the Rebirth. So it will make references to stuff from the New 52. So that's why I don't recommend you to actually read this event. The same for the Absolute Universe. I don't recommend you reading the Absolute Power event, because it will reference stuff from Rebirth. What I recommend you to do is just start from the #1 issue. You want to read Batman, you go for Batman Rebirth #1 issue, or Absolute Batman #1 issue. You can just skip the world and the event, because it's gonna mention stuff that you have no knowledge of. So you just I recommend to just start from the beginning of the count, from where the count reset. So that's the basic idea of these events, and from time to time there will be a new world ending event. We are just waiting for the next one. The same goes for I'm using Detective Comics as an example, but the same will happen with Marvel Comics. They also have their own world-ending events that will end the previous universe and start a new one. Another way of reading stuff, I recommend this only if you have just a little bit more of understanding of the characters, which is to just read the story arcs. So I'm gonna use Nightwing and Superman, Son of Kal-El as examples for this part. So Nightwing comics have been going on since 2016. It's a decade of comics, and they are right now on the issue 130 something. So it's a lot to read. But the thing is, if you don't have time, you don't actually have to bother with that, because the stories are split into arcs. So on Nightwing, let's say the 10 first issues will tell a story, the next 5 issues will tell another story, and so on. There is of course a continuity to it, but every arc will change the main villain. So if you don't have time, you can just break down the story into arcs and read those. Like you can read the first arc and then take a break and come back to it when you have time for it, and like read the second arc and then the third and so on. Or you can do what I'm doing right now, which I'm not sure if it's the best, but you can search online on YouTube for comic dubs. Like if you search for Batman comic dubs, you will see videos of people reading the comic books, and usually on the description of the videos there will be the source, there will be from where they took the story. So if I search for Batman comic dub, there will be a video titled something like Superman and Batman talks about fatherhood, and if you go to the description of that video, there will be the source, there will be written from which comic the guy took that story, and it's from Nightwing issue number 89 from 2022. As I said, Nightwing has going on since 2016, so I know this one is from Rebirth, so I can just search for Nightwing Rebirth and then go to the issue number 89, and there will be the story where Batman and Superman talks about fatherhood, and I can just read that story and I can like choose to continue or not. Like on this one, when you start this comic, Nightwing number 89, from Rebirth, of course, you open the comic book and then the second page is already an advertisement, which is from a story of the Amazons. So if I remember correctly, it's called Trials of the Amazons, and there is info of that for that story. Like it's gonna start on March. Well, it started because this was from 2022, so it started on March. So if you have an interest on the Amazons, that's also another starting point. So we came from a comic dub on YouTube that sent us to Nightwing number 89, and then on the second page it's an advertisement for this comic about the Amazons. If you have an interest on the Amazons, you can just go to that, which is called Trials of the Amazons, something like that. It's written on the comic book, it's written on the advertisement, so you can just start from there if you want to. But going back to the Nightwing comic book, you will start reading that, and the story where Batman and Superman talks about fatherhood goes from page 3 to page 7. That's the story, and then it continues. There is a time skip, and we continue the story of Nightwing. In this particular story, Superman's son, Jonathan, will go after Nightwing for advice. And this is a 2-part story. It will also be written on the comic. It will be said like, oh, this is a part 1 of 2. But I'll come back to that later. So you keep reading that, and at some point the characters will mention something that you don't know. They will eventually mention something that happened on previous issues. But you don't need to be scared of that, because there will be a note from the editors saying, hey, the characters are mentioning this thing, but if you don't know what they are talking about, you can just go to this other comic where this thing will be explained. In this case is a journalist group called The Truth that Nightwing will mention, and then on the editor's note there will be something like, hey, if you want to learn more about the truth, you should read this other comic book, which, if I remember correctly, is Superman Son of Kal-El number 7. So you can just go to that if you want to learn more about the truth. And since it's Superman Son of Kal-El number 7, you can just start from the beginning, because there is only 6 issues in there. So you can just start from Superman Son of Kal-El number 1 from the Rebirth universe, and then just read up until the issue number 7, and then you just come back to Nightwing. But anyway, going on to the Nightwing comic book, you will keep reading that, and then at the end of it there will be a another note saying, hey, this is only the part 1 of 2. If you want to read the second part of the story, you can go to Superman Son of Kal-El number 9. So you know where to go next. But you already read the 7 first issues of Superman Son of Kal-El, so you can read the number 8 and then the number 9 to get the rest of the story. So that's how comic books work. You just choose a starting point, and then the comic book will point you to where you need to go to understand more. You can ignore that if you want to, if you feel like the info is not that necessary, or you can go back and read the comic book where the editors are pointing you to read. So going to Superman Son of Kal-El number 9 is gonna be the same thing. On page 2 there will be an advertisement for something else going on in the universe, in the current universe. So you can just decide if you want to go to that or not. Then let's say you don't, so you continue reading Superman Son of Kal-El number 9. Again, at some point they will mention something that you have no knowledge of. In this case, it's gonna be the origins of Jonathan Kent. Well, not really the origins, but the time skip that he suffered. And they will mention that, and then there will be again a note. There will be a note from the editor saying, hey, if you don't know what the characters are talking about, you can read this other comic, which, oh god, I don't remember the name, but it's something like Superman Unity Saga or something like that. So you can just go back and read that, or you can ignore it, because all the info that is necessary, it's kind of presented to you. It's just like some very special cases that you actually need to go back. In this particular case, I would recommend to go back because this time skip is very important. Or you can just go back to YouTube and you can just search for the origin story of Jonathan Kent, Clark Kent's son, and you can search for the moment he was born up to the time skip, up to current days. And again, it's gonna be like a 10 minutes long video that you can just leave it running on the background, because again, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. I can probably summarize the most important parts of it in like 2 minutes. But anyway, then you continue reading Superman Son of Kal-El number 9, and again, when you reach the end of it, there will be a announcement saying, hey, this is the ending, because this is the ending of this arc, because it was just 2 issues. The first one on Nightwing, number 89, and the second part of the story on Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 9. So you can just choose to stop there or to continue reading that. Since you already read the 9 previous issues, you can just continue reading the Superman comic book that you already started, or you can just go back to Nightwing and you can just continue from the 90. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just like searching for arcs and reading those. Like I did that for City of Bane. There is a video on this channel where I discuss that arc. It was the same thing. There was a character that died, and I wanted to know more about the death of this character, because I was reading another comic book, and in that comic book they mentioned, hey, this character, it's dead. So I searched to see where I had to go to see the death of that character, and it pointed me to City of Bane. City of Bane is an arc on the Batman Rebirth comics, and it starts on the issue, I think it's 75, and it goes to the 85. So it's just 10 issues. And again, I don't need to actually start the Batman comics from the number 1, because I have no interest in the issues from number 1 all the way up to 74. I just want to know this character's death. So I will just read from 75 to 85. And if there is something I don't know, the editors will leave a note saying, hey, if you want to know more, go to this comic. And I can just choose to do that or not. In the case of City of Bane, I didn't thought that I needed to, but it's not really a very welcoming arc for people that have no understanding of the characters. So if you have no understanding, I don't recommend you do that. On this particular case, I will recommend you to read from Batman number 1 and then following the editor's notes, because there is some stuff related to multi-universes in there. Again, nothing too hard to understand. Nothing that a 10 minutes video won't help you out, because it's pretty easy to read that. I don't know how to put that in a better way. It's just like choose a starting point and read that and follow the notes the editors left for you, and you will sooner than you think you will have a good understanding of comic books and the characters that you like, because that's another thing. You don't need to read everything, just the characters that you enjoy. Now, hopefully I'll be wrapping things up, because I don't want this to be that big. But where to find comic books? If you know English, you can just buy straight from the source, or the last time I checked, there was a kind of a membership. You could pay every month and you would have access to the comic books. I say if you know English, because depending on your country, the distribution will be a mess. Like where I live, best case scenario, I would have to wait like a year. So I would be always 1 year behind because of the distribution issues, and of course not every comic book would be translated. Mostly it was like mostly the most well-known heroes, because that's the one that actually sells. So like less known heroes, yeah, I wouldn't be able to get on my language through official means, like the physical copies. On the membership, I looked at it and I saw that there is more translations than on physical media, because it's easier for them to just translate the digital copy of the comic books and then just like leave on a website for you to access, to pay and access. But there was some issues in there because the translation was really poorly done. Like there was some issues on lettering, like sometimes the artist will get creative on the lettering, and they will like play a little bit with the words and how they are displayed. And if the words had some artistic effects on them, they didn't translate that. Usually they just like put a note on the bottom of the page saying like, oh, these words means this thing, which was terrible. So I'm not sure how things are nowadays, because it has been quite some time since I looked into those translations. But yeah, that's like an option. Another option is to sail the high seas, because I saw some fan-made translations that are way better than the official ones. So you can do that. You can also do that for the English versions of the comics, if you want to. But basically those are the options. It will basically depend on where you live. If there is a easy to access supply for printed, you can go for that. If you know English, you can just get the subscription. But if you require the comic books to be translated, like if you have a kid, or if you just don't want to have to keep translating yourself, I really recommend you to look for fan-made translations. Because, well, at least when I looked, as I said, the official translations were pretty bad, and the fan-made ones were really were better. That's all I can say about it. But anyway, last thing, if everything fails, you can just blame the multiverse. For comic books, there is this notion of a multiverse. There are multiple universes going on at the same time. Like as I said, right now we have the Rebirth universe and we have the Absolute Power universe going on at the same time. They happen split, separated from one another because they are two different universes, but both are published at the same time. You can just choose to read one or the other. And when I say to blame on the multiverse, is that if you read something that you don't like, you can just forget about it. You can just say it never happened. You can say it happened on a different timeline. I'm doing this for the character that died on City of Bane because it was really poorly done. So I'm just like, nope, this character didn't die like that. And every time someone mentions like, oh, you remember this character that died, I would just think to myself, yep, I remember, and I refuse to remember it as the way it was told on City of Bane. Long story short, there is this character that got killed, and I didn't like the way the character got killed. So my headcanon is just that the character died of old age. But anyway, then every time another character mentions it, like, oh, you remember this character that died? I'll just go like, yeah, He died of old age. That's my headcanon, and nothing you say will change that. So you can just blame on the multiverse. No one's gonna care about it. But anyway, that's about it. That's how you read comic books. It's gonna be confusing at the beginning, but that's for everything. Until you get used to the rules of the universe, it's gonna be a bit confusing for you to get started on. But after some time, you will learn. You will learn how things go. And that's basically it.